Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much, Professor Huck, for this invitation to participate in this meeting. Uh, I interacted with you all a few weeks back, and it was a great experience for me. So I consider this as an absolute privilege for me to join your meeting once again. So I'll begin with a case which highlights why we need to look at regional wall motion abnormalities, and then I'll go on to discuss some of the causes of non-coronary origin of regional wall motion abnormalities. So this was a 29-year-old gentleman, lab technician at our hospital. He did not have any major cardiovascular risk factor. He presented one morning with persistent chest discomfort for 2 hours. We did his ECG, and as you can see here, this ECG did not show any major abnormality. Now, there was a major diagnostic dilemma. He was having chest discomfort, significant chest discomfort. ECG was normal, so we decided to do echo. These are his echo images, apical four-chamber view. As you can appreciate, there is a localized regional wall motion abnormality affecting the distal part of the septum and part of the apex. Now, in this person who was young, there was and who did not have any conduction system abnormality, there was no reason for him to have this wall motion abnormality. So, even though his clinical probability of having CAD was very low because of his age and lack of any major cardiovascular risk factors, and even though he did not have any significant ECG changes, we decided to proceed with angiography because of this regional wall motion abnormality and his chest pain. And to our utter surprise, we found a very scary looking LAD. It was filled with thrombus, the proximal and mid part. So he underwent immediate angioplasty to this vessel. He recovered, his LVEF also improved later. His ECG, which was done a few hours after PTCA, showed changes of evolved anti-wall MI. So this is a classical example where assessment of wall motion abnormality helped us in timely diagnosis of the problem and timely management. If we had waited for ECG changes to evolve or cardiac enzymes to become abnormal, it would have resulted in significant delay. And as we know in acute MI, time is muscle. So a regional wall motion abnormality refers to any myocardial contractile dysfunction which does not affect the whole cardiac chamber uniformly but is confined to some part. So coronary artery disease is the commonest cause of regional wall motion abnormality, and so much so that it is considered to be sine qua non of CAD. There are two reasons for that. One is that CAD by nature involves myocardium in a regional manner. Whichever coronary vessel is affected, that part of the myocardium gets compromised, other segments remain normal. So it is always regional in nature. And secondly, CAD is so much more prevalent as compared to any other condition which could cause wall motion abnormality, that CAD is always the first possibility whenever we find regional wall motion abnormality. Not only the presence of wall motion abnormality tells us that CAD is there, the distribution of the abnormality also is helpful in diagnosing which coronary artery is affected and which part of that coronary artery is involved. And all this information plays a very important role in the whole management of the patient. Wall motion abnormality assessment also forms the basis for assessment of myocardial ischemia, myocardial viability, and as I mentioned, for guiding treatment decisions in these patients. For this reason, there have been very well defined nomenclature protocols for LV segmentation. In echo, we've been following 16 segment model in which apex has 4 segments. There's a 17 segment model also, which includes an apical cap in addition to the conventional 4 apical segments. This model is applicable mainly for nuclear imaging and for MRI. In strain imaging, we use 18 segment model in which all the 3 apical views are divided into 6 segments each. And there is a quantification or scoring system also in which wall motion is scored from 1 to 4 and summed to get a wall motion score index. This is a semi-quantitative way of of quantifying the wall motion abnormality. But more than quantification, what is important is to look at the distribution, because distribution tells us which coronary artery is involved, as I mentioned in the beginning. This diagram shows the common pattern which we see, but we know that there is significant individual variation, because of which there is significant overlap also between different vessels, especially in the regions which border different vascular territories. But one point which I would like to emphasize here is that in case of CAD, if the artery is occluded, then the segments which are being supplied by the proximal segment of the artery before occlusion, they remain preserved and the distal part gets affected. This is very important to remember, because in CAD, reverse will not happen. You will not find a patient who has a well contracting LV apex but infarcted basal part of anterior wall in a patient who has got LAD occlusion. That does not happen. There are some exceptions though, like in patients who have undergone coronary artery bypass surgery. So in that situation, we may have reverse pattern, but by and large, it is always like this, that distal segments are more affected as compared to the proximal segment. So if we find that distal segments are contracting well and proximal part is infarcted, then we should suspect non-coronary cause of wall motion abnormality, and I'll show you an example of that. So we have discussed the significance of CAD as the etiology of wall motion abnormality, and CAD remains the most important cause, but there are some other conditions also which can cause wall motion abnormality without involving coronary arteries, and these conditions we need to be aware of, because whenever they are there, unless we are aware, it will lead to wrong diagnosis and wrong line of treatment. So we need to know what are the conditions that can cause RWMA in the absence of CAD. There are many conditions. The most common ones are listed here. The first two are those conditions which can cause wall motion abnormalities which are almost indistinguishable from coronary artery disease. These are Takotsubo cardiomyopathy and some systemic diseases like sarcoidosis. I'll show you examples of. Then there are many other conditions in which wall motion abnormalities occur, but they are usually easily distinguishable from CAD. Whenever we are looking at wall motion abnormality, there are two things that we need to be focusing on. One is that we should look at wall thickening rather than just the motion. In CAD, wall thickening is compromised, not just the motion alone, and this is very important. Whenever we have doubt, we should freeze the image and go frame by frame, and that will allow us to make out whether it is just the motion abnormality or thickening is also compromised. And second is, as I've repeatedly mentioned, that in CAD, wall motion abnormalities follow coronary distribution. So if the abnormalities are not following coronary vascular distribution, then that is a very important clue towards the presence of non-coronary cause of wall motion abnormality. So here is an example. 62 years old lady, long-standing diabetic and hypertensive. She did not have any previous cardiac history. She had a fall resulting in knee joint injury. She took some painkillers. The same evening, she started having atypical chest pain and breathing difficulty and landed in the emergency room with acute pulmonary edema. So at the time of presentation, she had all features of acute pulmonary edema. Her heart rate was 130. Sinus rhythm, blood pressure was 80 systolic. She was immediately intubated, put on mechanical ventilator, and was started on inotropic support. ECG was done, which showed sinus tachycardia with minor T-wave abnormalities, but otherwise normal. Troponin was slightly elevated at 1.5. Her echo was done, and these are her echo images. As we can immediately make out, there is extensive regional wall motion abnormality involving the apical segments and part of the mid segments of the left ventricle. And there is significant LV systolic dysfunction. So these wall motion abnormalities suggest either acute anterior wall MI or maybe an old MI with new myocardial insult, resulting in the clinical deterioration. Her creatinine was elevated at 1.5 going with increasing trend, maximum increasing to 2.5, and she was quite sick at that time, so she was put on an IABP was inserted in, and angiogram at that point was deferred because of rising creatinine. She was managed conservatively. She stabilized over next few days. Hemodynamics improved, urine output improved, creatinine also came down. She was extubated within 48 hours. And then 3 days later, her angiogram was done, which was absolutely normal. She improved further. IABP was removed, and echo was repeated on day 7. And as we can see, at this time, LV function was absolutely normal. There was no regional wall motion abnormality. So this was clearly a case of Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, which is known by various names like LV apical ballooning, stress cardiomyopathy, or broken heart syndrome. The name Takotsubo comes from the Japanese practice of using a pot to trap octopuses, and that's how this name Takotsubo is used. When we look at echo, many a times wall motion abnormalities are very much like CAD, as the example which I showed. In some cases, there may be some clues when there is involvement of mid segments also. So you find that only the basal part is contracting well, which goes against any single coronary vascular distribution, and then it gives a clue that this could be Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, or in cases where there is reverse Takotsubo, that apex is contracting well, basal segments are akinetic. So there clearly we can make out that this is not coronary in origin, but otherwise it is quite difficult. However, there are some clues from other investigations. ECG in these patients usually does not show ST elevation, and even if ST elevation is there, it is not marked. Cardiac enzymes also do not show rise which is commensurate with the extent of wall motion abnormalities. In this case also, there was extensive wall motion abnormality, but troponin was only 1.5. And these patients also show faster recovery as compared to acute MI. So all these things can provide us clue, but coronary angiography is the test which is required in almost every patient to rule out CAD and to confirm the diagnosis of Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. In some patients who are stable enough, MRI can be done, and MRI will be very helpful in making the diagnosis. It will not only show the typical wall motion abnormalities, but importantly, it will show significant mitral edema in the segments which are affected, but without any late gadolinium enhancement, suggesting that there is no necrosis. It is just edema. So that suggests that it is not acute MI, but something else. So that is one common condition of wall motion abnormalities which could be confused with CAD. Here is another example. This was 36-year-old gentleman, no diabetes or hypertension. He presented with ventricular tachycardia. Echo was done. As we can make out, there is akinesia of basal part of ventricular septum and basal inferior wall, which is quite consistent with old inferior wall MI. But when we look at Ferguson long axis view, we find something very interesting. His basal part of anterior septum is thinned out and akinetic. So this is quite atypical. And as I mentioned in my previous slide also, if we find that basal segment is akinetic, distal segment is fine, that should immediately alert about the possibility of a non-coronary origin of wall motion abnormality. So such kind of basal septal thinning and akinesia is very characteristic of sarcoidosis. And in this patient who was young, no diabetes, hypertension, who presented with VT, sarcoidosis was always a very likely possibility. So MRI was done, and it indeed showed features suggestive of sarcoidosis in the form of epicardial and myocardial delayed enhancement, which was patchy in distribution. This is unlike CAD, in which we find subendocardial distribution, which is confined to a vascular territory. So this patient turned out to be a case of sarcoidosis. And here I have another example of cardiac sarcoidosis. Once again, we find thinning of basal part of the septum, seen in Plaque's view and apical four-chamber view also. So this again was sarcoidosis. Whenever we find a patient who has got akinesia of basal part of septum, inferior wall, we should also look at anterior septum, and in young patients with history suggestive of ventricular tachyarrhythmia, sarcoidosis should always be considered. Now, this is another example. This patient was undergoing stress echocardiography. At base, the LV seems to be contracting well, but on exercise, it, the inferior wall becomes quite abnormal. It is wavy and it becomes very difficult to make out what the abnormality was. So in this situation, we should freeze the image and then go frame by frame, and it will help clear the confusion. So if you go frame by frame, see during systole, inferior wall is contracting well. There is no segment which is lacking. But during diastole, the apical part relaxes much earlier than the rest of the segment, and then the other part relaxes. So this heterogeneity of relaxation is what is causing confusion. There is no contractile abnormality here. So this was just a case of early relaxation which created a confusion of regional wall motion abnormality. And by looking at frame by frame, looking at this image frame by frame, we could make out that this was just impaired abnormality of relaxation. Here we have another example. There is severe left ventricular systolic dysfunction. In this image, basal and mid part of ventricular septum appear to be totally akinetic. Inferior wall also was showing the same appearance. So this raised a suspicion of CAD with inferior wall infarct. However, there are some clues which tell us that this is not CAD. In this example, the whole ventricle is hypokinetic. There is no single segment which seems to be contracting very well. Secondly, there is this sideway movement of apex also, which is known as apical rocking. It is less marked here. I will show you more classical examples in subsequent slides. And if you look at carefully, there is early septal jerkiness also. So all these features indicate the possibility of DCM with LVB. LVB, of course, we can diagnose based on ECG itself before echocardiography. So in the presence of LVB and these features, they should tell us that this is dilated cardiomyopathy. We should not confuse it with CAD, multivessel coronary artery disease with more marked involvement of inferior wall, although that may also happen occasionally. LVB more often produces this typical jerkiness of the ventricular septum, which we can make out from these 2D images also, and more clearly from M mode, this initial septal contraction because of early septal activation results in septal beaking or septal flash, as we call it. This is diagnostic of LVB. It has prognostic and therapeutic significance also, as has been shown in recent studies. So this is an example of septal beaking and apical rocking, this sideway movement of apex because of contraction of septum and lateral wall at different time points. So this was a large study, more than 1,000 patients undergoing CRT. Echo was done at baseline at 1 year later. Nearly 2/3 of the patients had apical rocking as well as septal flash. They were followed up for roughly 4 years after CRT for all-cause mortality. This study showed that the presence of septal flash or apical rocking both were associated with good response to CRT and significantly better survival in these patients. And more importantly, correction of this apical rocking by CRT was important in determining the outcome. So the patients who had apical rock, which was corrected by CRT, they had significantly better outcome regardless of the QRS interval, whether it was less than 150 milliseconds or more than 150 milliseconds. On the other hand, the patients who did not have apical rock, or in those in whom this apical rock was not corrected by CRT, they did not improve. So here we have clear prognostic and even therapeutic implication of regional wall motion abnormality in these patients. Such kind of septal jerkiness can be seen in other conditions also. VPCs, pre-excitation, or pacing. In fact, any conduction abnormality can produce this. This is an example of RV pacing causing septal jerkiness. Septal jerkiness can also be seen in patients who have undergone cardiac surgery. This occurs because of pericardiotomy, but this is not associated with any other features of constrictive pericarditis. So that helps in diagnosing that, okay, this is just post-pericardiotomy feature, not anything more than that. But this is an example, classical example of septal bounce, which we see in constrictive pericarditis. we see this, there is prominent subtle jerkiness or bounce. Pericardium is also thickened, as we can appreciate behind the left ventricle. This subtle bounce can be better appreciated on M mode. It occurs because of ventricular interdependence, which limits or which leads to the the altered relationship between the two ventricles, because of which filling of one ventricle leads to compromise of filling of the other ventricle, and because of this, there are these to and fro oscillations of the septum. This septal bounce is a very characteristic of constrictive pericarditis, and we should never miss a case of CCP if we pay enough attention to septal bounce. Then there are some other causes of wall motion abnormalities affecting the ventricular septum. This is a patient who had chronic pulmonary embolism with severe PH. As we can see here, the pressure is very high. So when we look at the wall motion abnormalities, on top we have peristome long axis view, and here we have peristome short axis view. We can see that the septum is completely flattened, and only for a very brief period it assumes its circular shape. So this persistent flattening of septum tells us that there is significant RV pressure overload and there is severe pulmonary hypertension. If you put M mode through this, we can see that the septum is flattened almost throughout the cardiac cycle, except for a very brief period when it assumes its normal shape. This is different from RV volume overload, which also leads to flattening of the septum, but this flattening is brief, occurs mainly during the diastole, and when it is systole, the LV cavity or LV myocardium assumes its normal configuration of being circular, but during diastole only, the septum flattens. So that's how we differentiate volume overload from the pressure overload. So these are some of the common causes of non-coronary origin of wall motion abnormalities. To summarize, CAD remains the commonest cause of regional wall motion abnormality, with RWMA being considered sine qua non of CAD. That remains valid. However, non-coronary causes of RWMA also exist. Their recognition is important for diagnostic purposes, as I showed you, and in some cases they have prognostic and therapeutic implications as well, as in patients with DCM, LVV who are undergoing CRT. Close attention to the clinical scenario, extent of wall thickening occurring, and distribution of wall motion abnormalities help us in deciding whether it is because of coronary cause or non-coronary cause. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your brilliant talk. I have one question. Actually, I'm confused about it, about tardokinesis, that is delayed segmental contraction during ejection phase, especially during stress echocardiography, which is really difficult to evaluate by eyeballing. So do you have any suggestion whether we should do strain imaging for objectively quantified or for evaluation of tardokinesis?
Yeah, tardokinesis is considered to be the initial manifestation of myocardial ischemia.
Yes.
Simplest is to look at the image frame by frame. As I showed you the example of early relaxation, if we do the same thing, we should be able to appreciate tardokinesis. I have an example also, which I did not include in this presentation. But if we have strain imaging also available, we can use strain imaging also. The only thing is that if you look at only one image, then we cannot be sure that the strain pattern that we are seeing is actually diagnostic. We will have to compare it from the baseline. So if you have both baseline and post exercise image and you use strain imaging, there's no tardokinesis or delayed contraction at baseline, but it appears after exercise, then it is diagnostic of myocardial ischemia.
Thank you so much.
I
see. Okay.
I want
Dr.
to.
Majid, please. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Moniz Bansal. You have mentioned several causes of pseudo RWMA, normal coronary arteries, but frequently we see that isolated LV non-compaction. In those cases, CAGs are normal. So regarding this isolated segmental non-compaction, would you please say something?
Yeah, isolated segmental non-compaction is a well-recognized entity. In non-compaction, more often it is global LV dysfunction. Even though the non-compaction is confined to some segment, it eventually leads to global LV dysfunction. However, there are uh, examples of segmental wall motion abnormality occurring during the early course of illness when the global myocardial dysfunction has not set in. So, in those cases, if you can see those trabeculae and recesses, then that will be a big clue towards the presence of non-compaction as the cause of regional myocardial dysfunction rather than the coronary artery disease. So, in the presence of significant non-compaction, it becomes quite obvious that the cause is something different from CAD.
Because
Yes, it is described.
In idiopathic non-compaction, we frequently see in almost 100% of cases, lateral wall is involved, either mid or distal, and distal IVS and mid or mid-distal infraposterior. These also are frequently involved. May
Yes,
tubular or may in accelerated form.
That's true. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We are running short of time, but we have Professor Fazlur Rahman with us, our panel of experts. Do you have any question or comment to Dr. Monish Bansal? Please unmute yourself.
Actually, we got a comprehensive knowledge regarding wall motion abnormality without coronary artery disease. My question is that what will be the next step to confirm the diagnosis, whether it is due to coronary artery disease or not, whether it is CT angiogram or invasive coronary angiogram?
Yeah. Thank you for this question. Very important question. See, the next line of investigation will depend on the clinical scenario. There are some conditions like pulmonary hypertension in which the wall motion abnormality is clearly non-coronary in origin. We can make out from echo itself. Then there's conditions like dilated cardiomyopathy. In that situation, we can go for CT coronary angio also or invasive depending on the overall clinical profile of the patient. If the patient is young, 30 years, no risk factors, has global LV dysfunction, CT is good enough. We don't need to go for invasive test. But in condition, if the same patient is elderly, has diabetes and smoker, there we will have to do invasive coronary angiogram also to be sure. In conditions like Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, invasive coronary angiogram is almost invariably required to rule out CAD. So the choice of the test will depend on the condition that we are dealing with and the clinical profile of the patient.
Thank you very much.